Breaking news exclusively from Blue Eye Media. And now from our global friendly partners.
We have breaking news right now. Donald Trump just posted that the Democratic lawmakers who said military service members should not follow illegal orders engage in, quote, seditious behavior punishable by death, openly calling for the execution of lawmakers in the United States of America. I cannot sugarcoat this, and this is something that we cannot sane wash. This is not just Trump being Trump. This is the President of the United States openly calling for the execution of lawmakers of an opposing party. They did not say anything illegal. They did not engage in seditious behavior. They merely said that military service members should not follow illegal orders. And yet some in parts of the media and on the right are saying, well, this is just Trump being Trump. He's not being serious. As a journalist, I refuse to accept that as a reality. Because the President of the United States of America calling for the execution of lawmakers that he doesn't agree with, and if that was Joe Biden doing this, they'd be calling for his impeachment and his removal from office. And I refuse to sane wash this, because this is a very serious moment in our nation's history right now. Spread the word, follow along for more. We have some major news right now. I just got off the phone with Senator Elissa Slotkin, one of the senators Donald Trump called to be executed, tried, and arrested today. She tells me that she and her office have received hundreds, thousands of threats since Donald Trump called for her execution. But she also told me a nugget that not many people are talking about. Slotkin previously served in the CIA, and she is sounding the alarm bells over the potential use of intelligence agencies like the CIA, which is not allowed to conduct operations on American soil. So I want you to watch what she said about intelligence agencies possibly conducting operations here in America and why intelligence officers need to abide by their oath.
I've definitely been hearing from intelligence officers. And I think the thing that really got my attention on the role of the intel community was the president kind of quietly in September put out an executive order asking the Department of Justice to come up with a list of domestic terrorist organizations, and then said, hey, use the full weight of the federal government, all the different departments and agencies to go after those domestic terrorist organizations. And the definition of domestic terrorist organization was very broad. You know, groups that disagree on the role of the family or on Christianity. I have no evidence. I don't know the list. I haven't heard if they have a list. But I am concerned. You know, I know firsthand what it means to go after a foreign terrorist organization, right? And to use the weight and the tools and the staff of the CIA to go after a foreign network. That's very different than going after a domestic terrorist organization. And so for me, it really pricked my ears up when they said, hey, the president wants you to come up with a domestic list and to use the full weight of the federal government to go after them. Again, we should be absolutely vigilant that the intelligence community, both the staff and the tools we have, should never be used against American citizens. That's one of the things we learned like the first week we're in the CIA.
So the president is now calling for the trial and hanging of Democratic Congress members. You heard me correct. The president has now officially said that Democratic lawmakers should be put to death after being tried and found guilty of sedition. And this comes after they have been telling soldiers, National Guard and active duty, that they should never obey an unlawful order. And that's true. You never should obey an unlawful order. That's solid advice. But because they are saying you shouldn't obey an unlawful order, the president is saying that's seditious behavior. He spent most of last night around 3 o'clock in the morning on the White House shitter on Timu Twitter, reposting people that are calling for the same thing, that Democratic lawmakers should be put on trial and charged with sedition and hanged. And the president supports this. And just about 20 minutes ago, he put this tweet up: seditious behavior punishable by death. Guys, we have crossed the fucking line of this just being a political conversation. Like, we crossed it a long time ago, but if you didn't believe it then, you need to believe it now. This needs to be immediately responded to by the American people. This president needs to be impeached, convicted, and removed. This is absolutely dangerous behavior. Nothing that these Democratic lawmakers have done is illegal. According to Article 92 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, any service member is supposed to disobey an unlawful order. So reminding troops that they should only obey lawful orders is in keeping with Uniform Code of Military Justice and military regulations, as well as the oath that we took to the Constitution. And the president doesn't care about the Constitution, and this is incredibly, incredibly dangerous to allow him to call for the death of Democratic lawmakers, let alone the fact that this will feed red meat to his base, who will now begin to threaten and go after these Democratic lawmakers. Congresswoman, I apologize. Have you seen the tweets from Donald Trump?
I have.
And I mean, as a sitting Democratic lawmaker that's being targeted by these, what's your response?
You know, this is the most insane and terrifying thing that we could possibly see. We know Donald Trump has unhinged, he has dementia, he's losing his mind, but this is taking it to an entire other level. He has been operating like an authoritarian since he was, inaugurated again in January, but this is terrifying, Jolly. I think if this is not the moment for every single Republican member of Congress, every single senator, every Republican governor, any person with influence in this country, if you're not going to speak out against this, then what are you even doing?
I completely agree, and it leads me to this question. Al Green spoke this morning in front of the Capitol about bringing articles of impeachment again. I feel like if you didn't agree before, maybe we can get some more steam behind it now. And like you said, Republicans need to wake up, because if he can target Dems, he can target Republicans. So do you feel like maybe impeachment is a more fruitful conversation now?
Absolutely. I mean, he is targeting Republicans. Look at the way he has called Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene a traitor. This is actually a moment for her as well to speak up against this, because this could happen to anyone. This is extremely dangerous. We're in a time of heightened political violence where members of both parties are getting assassinated in broad daylight. This is becoming the norm. And now he's putting the lives of these people who are heroes, who served our country, who are now members of Congress and the Senate in danger. Like, we should not have to be fearing for our lives and our family's safety every single day because we're serving our country. And for a sitting president to say what he said today online, this has never happened before in American history. I think back always, like, my parents fled to this country from Iran. Iran is where a regime kills its political opponents or threatens to kill its political opponents. Now the president of the United States is doing that. How is anybody okay with this? How is every single person not picking a side right now?
This was all going down while I was interviewing the governor of Maryland, video coming soon, by the way, but Donald Trump is now calling for Democrats to be put to death because he disagrees with them. He responded to a group of Democrats who are veterans, calling on military officials to not follow illegal orders. They swore an oath to the Constitution, to the United States, not to Donald Trump. And so Trump responded to that by saying it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example, weird, must be set. President DJT. He continued by saying this is really bad, dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up. President DJT. He concluded by saying seditious behavior punishable by death. So suggesting death for Democrats for telling people to follow the law. And then he reposted a bunch of random accounts, including this one, which said, hang them, George Washington would. Speaker Mike Johnson and other Republicans said they have no problem with what Donald Trump said, and instead they called the Democrats wildly inappropriate, which is just so mind-blowingly stupid. But this is the state of politics right now, where Donald Trump can demand that Democrats be arrested for no reason, demand they be put to death for no reason, and the Republicans just nod along and clap. They have no spine, and I don't want to hear MAGA ever lecture anybody ever again on political violence when their guy is doing this.
So Trump is now threatening to execute certain Democrats that he disagrees with for these Democrat lawmakers, calling for the military to reject any illegal orders they may receive. Now, let me be very clear. That is not against the law. You could court insubordination if you'd like to, but it's not against the law. And now Trump is threatening Democrats with seditious charges. This is absurd. You want to talk about inciting violence? That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing here. Listen, these Democrats put out a video, about 5 or 6 of them, urging on members of our military to reject any illegal orders, which is, by the way, again, I repeat, not against the law. The President of the United States threatening to execute Democrat lawmakers. Folks, I didn't think we can get any worse than this. But if you want to talk about seditious conspiracy, are we talking about those that were convicted in a court of law for January 6th? People like Enrique Tarrio, who were sentenced to 22 years in jail. Donald Trump called these people patriots and hostages. He pardoned these people. Let me be very clear once again. This is the most important part of this. Caroline Leavitt and the White House are lying. I know that'll shock some of you. Once again, claiming that these Democrat lawmakers are just openly calling on members of the military to reject any orders that they receive. That is a lie. That is not what was put forth in this ad. The language that was used in this ad is very, very clear. Calling on military members to reject illegal orders, which is, by the way, not against the law. At a maximum, you could say it's being insubordinate, not against the law. There's no law that says otherwise. This is not seditious conspiracy. These aren't sedition charges that you could file. And certainly capital punishment would not be a reasoning behind what these military members could be doing. So I just want to be very clear on that. This is the definition of inciting violence. It's exactly what this is. To suggest imprisoning these Democrats and possibly installing capital punishment is so beyond the pale, ridiculous, and disgusting. The fact that Donald Trump would even float around the possibility of this speaks volumes. And of course, people in the White House, like Caroline Leavitt, are lying. They're lying, and they're making the case that these Democrat lawmakers are openly calling for members of the military to just not follow through on any orders. That's not what they said. Language is very, very important here. They're asking for the military to reject illegal orders. Words are very important. So we need to be very honest about this and be very clear with what I'm about to say to end this video. Donald Trump is literally calling on capital punishment and sedition charges, threatening Democrats on a Truth Social tweet. If that's not the definition of inciting violence, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what is.
Follow Blue Eye Media for exclusive insights and breaking news sources from global-friendly outlets that you won't get from the mainstream TV and radio outlets of America. Learn how to play the flute of the globe and learn the real truth.